So your resume is your golden ticket into cybersecurity. One mistake can cost you an interview. That's why in this video, I'm going to cover 7 mistakes that you want to avoid on your resume and how to fix them. Hi, my name's AJ. I've been in cybersecurity for the last 9 years. And on this channel, we teach all things cybersecurity for beginners. So let's get into it. Mistake number 1 then is having way too many pages for your resume or your CV. So personally for me, I like between 1 to 2 pages. 2 pages is usually what I go for. Now, this is a resume and CV that is working well for the students that I've been working with recently. And it's a resume that I've personally used in the past as well. So as you can see here, this is a 2-page resume. It's quite clear with what's going on here. There isn't too much information because you always got to remember that recruiters, hiring managers are only going to want to glance quickly through the resume itself. So I would say try and limit it to at least 1 page or 2 pages. And ideally, to get as much information on there as you want, likely 2 pages might be the more beneficial one for you. But remember, recruiters don't have much time to scan through your resume. They're probably only going to look at it over about 30 to 60 seconds. So you want to make sure that it's not too long because they're going to want to read through all of it quickly. So mistake number 2 then is not using a professional email address. So when somebody looks at your resume and your CV, you want to make sure that it's a professional email address. You don't want it to be andrew.jones69 420, for example, at some random account. Have an easy, clean Gmail address, for example, or in cybersecurity, if you want to go full security, you can use something like Proton Mail, which is a free email account that you can use to create encrypted emails and increase your privacy. So again, if a recruiter, hiring manager in cybersecurity sees that you've got a Proton email address, kind of gauges that you're interested in security because these kind of email accounts aren't usually used generally by people who aren't thinking about security. So Proton Mail, it's an easy professional email address that you can set up, but it is also a professional email address that makes you look as if you're somebody who is interested in security as well. So it might sound like it is meaningless and isn't necessary, but these kind of simple things can really help your resume stand out. So mistake number 3 that you want to avoid then is adding your full home address. This isn't something that is really necessary anymore. We're not in the era of mailing out resumes or getting responses via mail anymore. Now you can just put your city, just put your state, just put the kind of brief location where you are. You don't need to input your full home address. It's just a little bit unnecessary and can actually clog up your email address with information that you don't need. And especially in the world of cybersecurity, adding your full home address on here is a slight security concern, as you never know where your resume could end up. And if somebody has access to your home address, then they've ultimately got access to where you live, and you could start inviting some unnecessary security concerns. So especially when applying for cybersecurity jobs, these are the kind of things that you want to think about when going to apply, because ultimately it's going to help you look like somebody that is in that cybersecurity mindset. So mistake number 4 that you definitely want to avoid then is not tailoring your resume or your CV to the job that you're applying for. You should be doing this for every job that you're applying for to increase the chances that this resume will get seen. And as you can see here, this is just a template, and it's not particularly tailored towards any sort of job that we're trying to apply for. And the benefit of tailoring the resume is to increase the chances that it passes through the application tracking system or actually gets seen by the hiring manager as well. Because ultimately they only want to see resumes that are actually suitable for the job itself. So if you just send a generic resume or CV, then it's not going to stand out. And ultimately this is what we're trying to do these days. I'd much rather you process and do applications, a smaller amount of applications. So let's say that you did 2 to 3 per day, but each one of those was tailored towards the job that you're applying for, rather than just blast out the same resume or CV to hundreds and hundreds of jobs, because ultimately the lower volume and the increased in tailoring is what is going to actually benefit you here. And you can actually use AI to help you here as well. So if you find a job, so this one, for example, senior cybersecurity analyst, you can use a tool like ChatGPT, Grok, for example, to help you tailor these resumes to the actual job description. So you can grab the job description like this, you're going to add that in here, and then we can add our resume in as well. And if we paste this in here and hit enter, this is going to automatically tailor the resume towards the job that we're going for. Now, you still want to read through this. You want to make sure that you can clearly understand what is on here. But ultimately, this is going to help you actually process the job application much quicker by helping to tailor your resume exactly to the CV, because ultimately these application tracking systems, they're looking for specific indicators. So if the job description is asking for Microsoft Sentinel experience, is asking for Splunk experience, you want to make sure these things are in here, because ultimately this is what the company is looking for. And if this is what they're looking for, then it's going to increase the chances that your resume is going to stand out and you're actually going to get an interview, which the whole point of a good resume and a good CV is just to get the initial interview. So mistake number 6 that I see then is over designing your resume. So as you can see, this one here is clear, it's concise, it doesn't have unnecessary images in there, any kind of formatting that is unnecessary. It's got everything that we need. It's just text-based, and these are the ones that I think personally stand out much better than ones like this, for example. You've probably seen them. They just look a little bit untidy. So I know that people do try and design them to kind of make them stand out. But personally, I don't think it's the design that stands out on a resume. It's actually the information that's on there. So don't go over designing your resume like this. Keep it simple, keep it clear. Got your experience, got your projects, got your education, certifications. That's all you need. Tailor that towards a particular job and don't over design it like this, and you'll be in a much better position when it comes to actually applying. So mistake number 6 that I see as well, and this is a relatively easy one to fix, and that is grammar and spelling mistakes. So you want to be reading through your resume, your CV, every time you tailor it to make sure that it makes sense and to make sure that the spelling is correct as well. Now you can use things, so you can use spell checker in things like Google Docs, for example. You can even put it into another spell checker just to double check it. But you want to be reading through this. The spelling mistakes, they just look sloppy, they just look untidy, and they are unnecessary. So you want to try and remove as many of the grammar and spelling mistakes as possible, just to make sure that it looks like you're somebody that will go through your work and double checks your work. Because ultimately, if you just submit a resume that's full of spelling mistakes and grammar errors, it's going to look like that you're somebody that doesn't really care and isn't really interested in reviewing your own work. And this is something that can really help you stand out. But ultimately, grammar and spelling mistakes can hold you back in applications. So just make sure you're reading through it. Once you're about to process your application, just double check your work, because ultimately this is another skill that you're going to be doing in cybersecurity. You're always reviewing information, double checking your work. So make sure that you're doing this when you're submitting your resume and your CV as well. So mistake number 7 then, and the final one that we're going to go through here, is actually exaggerating or faking any experience. So all the experience that needs to be on your resume and on your CV needs to be real, because ultimately at some point it's going to get picked up on, and you want to make sure that everything in your CV and your resume is something that you can back up in an interview. Because if I was interviewing somebody for a cybersecurity analyst role, for example, and they had experience on their resume that mentioned that they've set up a SIEM like Microsoft Sentinel at home, and then I asked them questions in the interview about Microsoft Sentinel and they don't know anything about it, I would not go any further. I would much rather that they didn't have this on their resume and they just mentioned, I don't actually have experience with Microsoft Sentinel, but I do have experience with Splunk, or they tried to draw from different experiences rather than trying to lie or fake experience on here. So you want to make sure that your work experience is work that you've actually done, the projects are projects that you've actually done, and the education and certifications and all the skills on here are things that you've actually done. Because ultimately, if you go into an interview and you've mentioned that you've done a project, like we've mentioned here, detecting and analyzing network traffic with Suricata, for example, if you actually haven't done that project and I start to talk about analyzing network traffic or even using honeypots, for example, and you don't know what this is, then you're going to ultimately fail that interview, and the interview is just going to end there and you're not going to go any further. So make sure that you're not faking any experience. Make sure that you're not exaggerating any experience on here, because ultimately every part of your resume and your CV is going to get talked about in the interview. So when you're in an interview, it's usually talking about the job description, questions about the job description, and questions about your resume and CV. So you have to know that you know both of them back to back and you're not faking any experience. because nobody's asking you to be an expert. You just want to be capable and honest when you're in these interviews. So to conclude then, you want to avoid these 7 mistakes on your resume and your CV to increase the chances and the likelihood that you land a cybersecurity job interview, because ultimately this is what the resume and CV is for, is to secure job interviews. If you start securing these job interviews regularly, then you're going to know that your resume and CV is actually working, and you can move on to the next step of the process, which is getting better at these interviews. Now, if you want to jump on a call with either myself or a careers advisor to walk through a free tailored pathway for you into cybersecurity, we do have a link in the description below. So I look forward to jumping on a call with one of you if you're interested. Now, I want to say thank you for watching this video. Now, if you want to know what I do day to day as a cybersecurity analyst, go and watch this video next. Thank you for watching. I'll see you over there.